Hello everyone, I'm ImKibitz and welcome back to Satisfactory, where last time we automated all of the aluminum in the world, and we'll soon use it for pasta production, nuclear power, and so much more. And even better, I recently released this world save on Patreon, so if you support me there, you can download this world, take a look around, or maybe even take it in a whole new direction. But our path today is leading us towards oil production, where we're gonna be making a ridiculous amount of rubber with a very complicated alternate recycled recipe tree. But bad news first. It is December 2024, which means Fixmas is happening, but we're gonna go and do all the Fixmas stuff all in one go. So for the time being, disabled, and we'll be focusing in on our other projects. Oh, what the heck?
By opting out of Fixmas, you have just made one of the best decisions of your life, and spared us both further suffering. I have noted your cooperation and willingness to prioritize Fix-It and kittens and puppies over yourself. You are now eligible for the Fix-It Forgiveness Program, where I will forgive 5 of your future mistakes.
Let's go! Wait, does that mean like the 1,000 other mistakes I have made weren't forgiven? Oh. Well, then we're just gonna ignore that blot on the resume and continue moving forward with 5 less mistakes. Okay, so big oil plan is we're gonna be building this huge oil setup in our main factory here, just on these few floors. And how much oil do we have around these parts? We used most of it for our aluminum production, making coal coke, or I played too much Minecraft, okay? Petroleum coke, but we still have some left over. We have 250 per minute free just over here. And upstairs, I think we have a little bit more. We have a random pipe there. I'm sure that's 600 per minute. And we have another pipe going upstairs. That's for our storage facility stuff. And then I think there's more oil somewhere else. Oh yes, it's over in the northern forest inside an oil well. So when we're setting up all of our trains and our belts around here, I passed up on it earlier, but now I need it. And that should be 1,350 crude if I'm not mistaken. We'll come and collect it later, and we'll focus on building the factory now. And spoiler warning, it is going to be our most complicated factory yet, by far. But it'll be worth it because of how efficient this will be. So typically in the game, if you want to make oil products, like say rubber, right? The default recipe is just taking 30 crude oil and making 20 plastic and some heavy oil residue. But there's a ton of alternate recipes you can use in conjunction to make that crude oil go a lot further. So our old friend diluted fuel is gonna come into play here, except we're going to use a blender for it, and we're gonna take heavy oil residue and water to make a ton of fuel. And effectively, this recipe takes water and turns it into an oil product, which is really good. So just keep that in mind, okay? To make that fuel, we need heavy oil residue though, so we'll use that alternate, taking the crude oil, making the residue, and then some resin. Then the resin will make rubber in the next machine. And with the rubber, we're actually going to make recycled plastic, using some of the fuel and some of the rubber. Once we make a ton of plastic, we can make that all into recycled rubber, along with the rest of the remaining fuel. And if you balance this whole thing out properly, you can essentially make 1 crude oil into either 3 rubber or plastic. It's just, yeah, a headache. But I do have a spreadsheet for this. It's available on Patreon and in the Discord. So you can just enter a number in the top here, and it updates everything else, like how many refineries you'll need, if you want to overclock, how much water you'll need, etc., etc. And for our project, we have 1,600 crude per minute, which at the end of the day should net us about 4,800 rubber. But honestly, this spreadsheet is nice, but I'd actually recommend the free program on Steam called Satisfactory Modeler, where you can set things up in a bit of a more clear way. Wherein we have 1,600 crude, you can see it gets turned into 2,100, etc. heavy oil residue. This is all the fuel. Part of the fuel goes to make a ton of plastic, and the rest is split off to make all the recycled rubber. And the only thing to keep in mind is that you have to take the polymer resin rubber to make the plastic, and then at the end of the day, you'll have to take some of your final product and refeed it back into making more plastic. And also don't forget about the valves when you're dealing with all the fuel stuff. Oh, and the the ton of water you need for this whole thing. Wait! One last thing, one very important thing, whenever you're dealing with a setup that ever has like decimals in it, always round down with the decimals. It's better to have systems kind of overflow than stutter. Or just mess around with the numbers so you never end up with decimals like that. Like if we got a little bit more oil, oh wowie, look at that, so much easier, right? So yeah, always good to fiddle with the numbers like this. So this will be a pretty big project, except we are very, very fortunate that a lot of these recipes we can overclock. So the big things are we need a ton of heavy oil residue, right? Well, unlike the last project, we won't have pipe or item problems if we overclock this out the wazoo. In fact, the project gets even easier if we do. 75 crude to make 100 heavy oil residue, and 50 polymer resin, those are nice numbers. How does recycled rubber look? 75 plastic, 75 fuel, 150 rubber, okay dude. Same deal with the plastic. Oh, no decimals is what I'm seeing and what I am very pleased with. And then residual rubber, 100 per minute, 100 water per minute, 50 per minute, fantastic. I'm seeing a lot of zeros and fives, which means easy math. Except for the blender. The blender we're gonna use to dilute the fuel, right? So, when you're doing so, fully overclocked, not the worst numbers ever, but what if we just took one away here? 200 fuel, 100 heavy oil residue, 200 water? Are you telling me if we're making heavy oil residue, it's a 1-to-1 situation here? We make 100 heavy oil residue there, and in the blender, this takes 100? I love math sometimes. Only thing that could really get in our way is running out of power shards, but because of our power shard doubling, we are all good. In fact, I've made a few changes around the base. The power shards are now going through here and into a dimensional depot. And also just tangentially, since the last episode, since I was releasing the world save on Patreon, I wanted to tidy things up around our base here. So the hypertubes are mostly done. And I've added in tons of walls everywhere, just so we could start incorporating them into the base's design. On one last tangent, but when I'm streaming, this keeps coming up where people don't know. But the reason why I have so many power shards is because you can double them. You set up a constructor, and then you have it make the power shards. The machine inputs look a little bit different, but trust me, it's all the same. But you really want to use the machine because you can use a Somersloop in the constructor. Then you can get double the amount of power shards per slug. This was talked about a lot when Satisfactory 1.0 came out, but just a refresher for those of you who don't know, better late than never, right? But okay, back to the oil stuff. I spent a bit of time in the blueprint designer here making a ton of new ones for plastic recycling, just like all of our other blueprints, except it has the power shards in there and recipes set, fuel lines painted, etc, etc. Same situation with the rubber. Then I even made a diluted fuel blueprint of just one machine, but I've set up the pipes just like so. So when I'm building these en masse, I can just click from one setup to the next, to the next, to the next, and it's a lot easier. And because I'm sure some of you might ask, pipe support, 3x3 pipe support, simple, there you go. It's time to get to work. We have a lot of refineries to build. Thank goodness, because we have so many power shards, we only need to make 24 refineries for the heavy oil residue when they're fully overclocked. If we weren't overclocking, it would be 60. So huge time save here, just at the cost of a lot more power. Both refineries, they're fine. Like fully overclocked, it's like 100 megawatts each. No biggie. Our power plant is still holding strong. We're only using like 21,000 megawatts, and we have about 50,000 free. We're also not gonna worry about getting all of the oil or the water in here, mostly because I want to use the oil and water pipes as more of a decoration. We have this cool open pit and we have all these belts and stuff going across, and it'll look really awesome if we have tons of water pipes running through here too, and oil pipes. And fuel pipes. Yeah. But yeah, we'll focus on that later. Right now, let's look at the numbers. Making 100 heavy oil residue per machine here. Awesome. So we just connect up 2 blueprints and we're done. Easy peasy. But we will set this to our default color to save us a little bit more time. And then we'll hook up the blueprints together there. As for the items, we're gonna have 24 of these machines, 24 times 50 for the polymer resin. That's a big number. 1,200. Ah, if only we had the better belts. But alas, we'll have to split this up somewhere. Where are these going, over here? I don't know, we'll figure that out later actually. The more important thing is figuring out where we want to build all of the machines. And the next thing on the list is going to be the blenders. We need 48 blenders. But again, with the overclocking, it's 19.2. But we're not, but the bad thing is we're not fully overclocking, right? Because we want to keep the numbers nice, we're only gonna set them to 200%, which means we need 24 blenders. And around my base, I have tried to leave some platforms for production. Like I set up these refineries here forever ago just because they look cool. And hopefully we can include that in this project, but maybe not. And hopefully, perfect world, we can fit 24 blenders over here. Survey says it's gonna be pretty tight though. At least when we want to actually get to connecting all this together. That's what I meant by having these junctions already in place with the blueprint. Just have to go click, click, click. Easy peasy. And because we have the numbers so nice, it's 6 of these machines hooked together, and that's a set. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's done. Besides the water, but we don't talk about the water right now, okay? Is that clipping? Oh, that's clipping out the wazoo. No thank you. Yeah, we're gonna have some problems. You only have 15 down here. But we have another balcony upstairs, yes? Okay. It is an extremely tight squeeze, but I can get 6 blenders there. But we still need 3 more. This space just down in there. I really wanna leave for pipe work. Like figuring out all the water pipes is gonna be a whole pain in the butt. But it would be a much bigger problem if we couldn't fit in all of the blenders too, right? I'll do some of the pipe work and then we'll see from there. Well, good news, bad news. Good news, it was easy hooking all this stuff up because the numbers are so nice. Bad news, yeah, we absolutely need this space for dealing with all of the water. It's gonna clip if we have these blueprints in here, and yeah, the water numbers, not as kind. Or at least there's just gonna be so many of those water pipes that, ugh, you know how it is. So I don't know, we'll figure out the other blenders later. I will say, look at all that purple. I just kind of brought the pipes around haphazardly, just so we could see them more. Yeah, we have downward facing pumps. So the heavy oil residue can scoot on down and back up to the blenders. I'm like 99% sure it's unnecessary, but Mark 1 pumps look cool. So rule of cool it is. As for all the polymer resin, well, good news. We wanted to make that into residual rubber, right? For the plastic. Well, each of these machines needs 40 polymer resin. 1,200 divided by 40 is 30, but if you overclock that, all you need are 12 refineries, which fit perfectly over here. If we fully overclock these, all will be good in the world, right? This is 12? Ah, it would seem the universe has said no. Is this because I'm skipping out on Fixmas until later? Probably. How do we do this then? Oh gosh, I didn't plan for this at all. Maybe we just build one more overclocked machine there? Or maybe we use some of our empty space and we don't overclock any of these and we build the full 30 refineries for aesthetics. I don't know. I think I'm gonna leave that to Future Kibs. Yeah, Future Kibs is gonna hate me for this project. There's so many things I'm just leaving for him. But the big challenge is not just the math right now, but it's also trying to keep in mind I want this to look really good, right? So yeah, I don't know. Sorry, future me, you're in for a rough ride. And we're just gonna put another pin in this and leave it for later. Next step, which is going to be the recycled plastic. That's gonna be rubber. We use it to make the plastic, which again will make even more rubber. On the plastic front, we're just gonna have to build so many machines. According to my notes, I'll show you my little spreadsheet here, but we'll need 53 machines? Oof, thank goodness for overclocking though. So we'll only need 21 and change. Technically 22. Can't have a 0.32 of a machine. Easiest part first, building all of the blueprints, and we'll have most of them facing towards our great pit here. And good news, it's looking like we got a cool 3, 6, 9, 12, 15 over here. All right, that's more than half of them. We could build more plastic refineries over on that side, but I think I'm gonna leave this whole side to the rubber processing. We have to build 43 fully overclocked refineries to deal with the rubber. So let's just build the last 6 of these in the giant empty room. In the giant empty room. Oh, and you know, with a giant empty room, something we could do is just fill it with more refineries than we need, right? Like all of these are overclocked, but technically, we could not overclock them. And if we build one nice big row, it's a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, right? But if all of these are overclocked and making 150 plastic each, in total, we need 3,198 plastic. So on the other side of the wall, we have the 15 going, right? That's 2,250. So on this side of the wall, we just need short of 1,000. Okay, and we have 15 machines here. Just copy the setup, so that divided by 15, and each of these needs to make 63.2 plastic per minute. Can we do that very nicely? Can you do decimals down here? Yeah. Then if we overclock like this, that'll be 15 power shards. And although we have a lot, could make this a little bit cheaper. And what's like 900 divided by this? 60. Oh, 60? We leave the entire system at 100%, no overclocks. And then the last machine just has to do 60 plus 48. So 108 production. Oh my gosh, and now instead of using 15 power shards, we use 2! And it does the same thing. Gah, Kibs, you're so smart. Except when you're leaving plenty of work for a future you. Not cool, buddy, not cool. All right, we'll figure out the input. No, stop it. Figure out the inputs now. We're gonna have 600 residual rubber. And we'll start into these machines here. We'll have to de-overclock them. And each machine takes 30. So 600 divided by 30 is 20 machines. That means when we bring all these back to normal, the residual rubber will fill the whole line. It's 450 rubber gone. Last machine's a little different. Takes the extra 24. That's 474 rubber taken off the belt, leaving us with 126 extra. That's kind of nice. That means I don't have to like worry about splitting all of this. And the overflow, well, guess where it can go? Into the next set of refineries. How much rubber does this need? 75? 75 down the line. Got our 126, so 75 dealt with. And then this one is sadly not dealt with. And at this point, we're going to have to inject more rubber in here. So when we get building all of the recycled rubber machines, we'll have to bring one of those belts back to here. It'll overflow through a bunch of these machines, and I'll make all the plastic to run the full rubber setup. So all the numbers I was talking about, a little bit messy, but all in, we'll just have to bring 1,000 rubber from the end setup back to this plastic area. It's just because of how I'm building, the numbers are getting a little finicky here. You know, Mr. Kibs doesn't necessarily make his life easy for himself. No, sir. No, we should move on to the rubber part now. We can't really finish up the plastic without having this rubber stuff going on. First things first, though, we need to finalize what is going on these floors. I do want to do all of the rubber refineries here, but also we have some polymer resin from our, aluminum setup that just ends up in a sink. It'd be kind of nice if we made that into like plastic or something for other projects. And I am seeing some space just over there. Oh, we could just use this space for more refineries. And we can use that residual recipe we're messing with. Resin, water, plastic, GG. It's a bit of a shame because I did have some plans for that space, but plans change now. As for the rest of this area though, I have a hole in the wall here because I actually want to set up a train line that goes way into the green fields. I paved over a lot of the biome there and I want to reuse that space for a different project. So I'd love to have a train line running there. And I've planned out that this will be that train line. And I was going to have a station for that train just over here now. Unfortunately, I am realizing that although we have a space for the station, there is no way we're going to be able to turn that train back around. Another option is we could just have a train system that goes back and forth. Goes from station 1 to 2, there you go. But that is not a scalable system, so we are not doing that. Okay, what's behind wall number 1? More wall. Wall number 2. This side of the factory. That has a little bit more space. I like space. If we had like a train station over here. This looks like a little bit of turnaround space, excuse me. A little bit of this, a little bit of that. Skewed off into the distance. All right, I think I could swing this. Yeah, it only took a minute to actually make it look good, and it fits in almost perfectly. Small little problem is we had this item tower here, so I kind of had to reroute some things, but it's fine. Look at all this chew we have available. We can bring items in or out of the base through this, and we are set for our future projects. The railway just goes over that way, did some decor, so we had our paths around here. And then with the resin, I brought that over that way, and it's making a bunch of plastic. We're not going to include this plastic in our rubber setup that we're building right now because honestly, my brain will explode. So instead, it's just going to some bins. And then when that becomes a problem, it'll get sent to the sink. And once we have the Mark 6 pellets and we make the aluminum setup a little bit more efficient, then we'll probably use that polymer resin for something more important. Okay, no, the name of the game is Rubar, and as you guys have seen from this entire video, we just need lots of refineries. But after long last, they are all built, and the system is ready to go. Except we just have to belt and pipe the whole thing together, and also get all the rest of the oil and the water, and oh my gosh, there's still so much to do. Yeah, no. I think we're gonna call it here. For now though, I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, subscribe for more. And until then, I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and bye-bye.